It's time to harvest potatoes, and if you recall from a previous video, we are comparing certified organic seed potatoes to seed potatoes that I got at my local feed store. We have a few different beds to harvest from today. Let's see what they look like. We're going to start out with this raised bed. This is where I planted 3 different kinds of red potatoes, and I have to go back to my garden planner to figure out exactly which potatoes I planted where, because I want to keep up with the pounds and how much each one produced so that I can compare them. Okay, so it looks like in this bed we've got Red Cloud, which is certified organic. I think we have 8. I planted 8 seed potatoes of those. In the middle, we have a few of the red Norlands. The red Norland is also certified organic. The red Pontiac was seed potato from my feed store. This one was the first one to sprout, followed by the Red Cloud, and I think the red Norland was a little bit behind it. So let's check them out. I can tell that these are ready to harvest because they've pretty much died back. One thing that's really interesting about right now is that it's going to be 101 degrees today, and we've had a very quick and hot summer, which potatoes don't love. And so I'm kind of curious how the harvest will end up being because they have had a lot of issues with heat. But as you can tell, I did mulch pretty heavily with this straw mulch, and I hilled them up as much as I could. I'll reuse this straw mulch in other places in the garden, but for ease of harvest, I'm just taking them out along with a few weeds. Okay, I think we've got the 4 right here, and I could use a digging fork, and I think I might come back in here and use the digging fork, but for now I'm going to go ahead and just take these out. Don't mind my cilantro going to seed. This is how I have cilantro all winter, is I let these go to flower and go to seed, and they drop, and then I have cilantro, so that's why I don't take that out. The potatoes are usually going to be at the top. They really don't grow underneath the seed potato, so I don't expect to see a whole lot besides what's at the top, but digging around just in case. You might notice that the soil's dry. I did stop the irrigation on this just to help the skins to be able to harden up a little bit. And we haven't gotten rain for a month almost, so that helped too. All right, let's take the pitchfork and see if we can get a few extras. Oh, there's one. All right, that's it for the Red Cloud. We will go and weigh those and compare them to the next couple of red potatoes harvests. All right, the next one is Red Norland. This again is certified organic. The difference with these was I got the shipment a little bit late and they didn't have time to green sprout. And so they actually came up a little bit later than the other ones, but I'm not sure, how the harvest will end up being. And I think I only have 4 of these planted, but let's see how they do. You can see when I push this straw away, they're sitting right there. That's another benefit of hilling and mulching deeply here, is you don't want these exposed to sunlight or they'll turn green, and that's a toxic substance you're not going to want to eat. That's a good amount right there. That's a lot, at least based on my past harvests, just off that one plant. Interesting, we had one really good plant and the other ones didn't produce all that much. Go back and see if I've missed any. I do have a tree root in here I'm dealing with that could have affected it. Checking to see if I nicked this. If I nicked it, I would need to use it right away instead of trying to cure it for storage. Looks like it's just barely scratched. I should be okay. I think that's it for the Red Norlands. Again, these were only 4 plants. Not bad. Let's go on to the Red Pontiac, which was just the certified disease-free, not organic. These other 2 were organic. We'll see how the Red Pontiac does. Okay, now to the Red Pontiac. Again, this came from my feed store, these seed potatoes did, and they sprouted sooner. I think the reason is because they they probably had started sprouting a little bit more at the feed store. And I planted quite a few, I think maybe 10, I'll have to go back and look, but maybe 10 plants. These also, if you've noticed, they have died back quite a bit to where they're pretty much dead. There's not much left of them. I think part of that is because they did sprout a little bit earlier, so they naturally just declined quicker than the other ones. But there may have also been a days to maturity difference. I have to go back and reference to compare that. Now recall that this is straw, not hay. I've had bad experience getting hay that had been laced with herbicide. I've never had that issue with straw, although it's always good to ask wherever you get your source. But straw is what's on here, not hay. All right, here's the harvest of the red Pontiac, and we'll have to go weigh these to see how they compare to the others. Let's go on to the white potatoes in the raised bed behind me. In this bed, I have 2 white potatoes. They are a little bit different because the one here on the south side is Caribe, and I got these as certified organic. And then the ones over here are Kennebec, and they're ones I got from my local feed store. Now the difference between these two is that the Caribe is supposed to come to harvest at 70 days and the Kennebec at 90. And I would say the Caribe flowered earlier and they grew faster perhaps, but as far as when they died back, they all kind of died back at the same time. So I'm not really sure what that'll mean for harvest, but let's see if there's a difference in comparison. All right, time to start digging the Caribe. I'm excited about these. I've never grown them before. I'm excited about them because they're supposed to be this beautiful purple color. And, oh wow, purple on the outside and white on the inside. And they have a very short days to maturity, which is very helpful in the South because we get so hot so fast. We had a string of upper 90s in May, which is really bad for potatoes, but they seem to do okay. I'm kind of in a dappled shade area here, so I think that helped. And of course, I did hill these with straw twice, one right ahead of that heat wave. The ones in the center of the bed are getting larger and there's more of them. I wonder if that's partly because they're a little bit cooler in the center than they are on the edges. I have to say I am very impressed. This is a great harvest and these are beautiful potatoes. All right, these are Kennebec seed potatoes from my feed store, which I have grown in the past. They never have done well for me, and I think part of that is because they are a long season variety, 90 days, and that's just a lot to ask for our climate where we go from winter to summer really fast. But we'll see. That's why I wanted to side by side compare the Kennebec to the Caribe, was to see if the Caribe would give me more of a white potato than the Kennebec ever has. So the certified organic versus just the certified disease-free here isn't a true one-to-one comparison, of course, but it'll just kind of be interesting, the difference in the yield. It's amazing how much drier the soil is over here, further away from that drip line. You can see why planting a fall potato planting might be a lot easier to harvest. There's the Kennebec. Finally, we have the Yukon Gold to harvest. Today I'm going to harvest the Yukon Gold that were certified organic. A couple of weeks ago, I harvested the Yukon Gold that were from seed potatoes from my feed store. They were ready, but these weren't. I was trying to give them a little bit more time to mature. Kind of interesting because they're both Yukon Gold, but we'll see if the harvest is any different. Another reason that the Yukon Golds from the feed store may have harvested sooner is because they did sprout sooner. Also, I did interplant these with the row of celery right here, which I harvested yesterday. Not sure if that would have impacted the harvest or not, but I try to companion plant as much as I can. I think the celery appreciated having a little bit of shade from the potatoes. And I did install drip tape for this, so it had a little bit different irrigation. It didn't have the drip lines like the other potatoes did. The whole bed had drip tape actually, not just this one. Interesting. It's got little scrapes on it like a rodent might have gotten it. I don't know of anything that's been in the garden. See, potatoes still attached. I will say historically that Yukon Gold have always produced the best for me in my garden. They are a shorter season variety. I think that helps. One thing about this particular bed, as I've noticed, it's had a lot more shade. This was covered with hairy vetch, and I do wonder if that will affect the yield of all of these. In the afternoon, there's some shade too here. Another difference with this bed too is the Yukon Gold, both of them grew really tall, taller than I'd ever seen them before. And so when we had heavy rains and wind, they seemed to fall down more so than the other ones, which I don't know if that would have affected their yield or not either. It's just something I've observed. Here's the Yukon Gold from the certified organic seed. Let's go weigh all these and see what we've got. I'm back in the air conditioning now, and I decided to go ahead and put the numbers to it because that was the whole point of this experiment, was to figure out if paying a little bit extra for certified organic was worth it compared to buying certified disease-free from the feed store. So here's what I was able to find after putting some pen to paper. At my local feed store, I can get certified disease-free seed potatoes for 65 cents a pound. Now, I know that's not going to be the case in many parts of the country. I think we're kind of unique in that area in Arkansas. I do hear from a lot of people who say they can't find any seed potatoes, so they don't even have that option. Whether or not you have that option, your price may vary, so keep that in mind. But the certified organic potatoes that I bought are $13.99 a pound. So you can tell that that's a huge difference. And I honestly wasn't expecting to see that much of a difference in the yield. I did see a little bit of a difference though. In the Yukon Gold, when I compared one row to the other, the Yukon Gold that was certified organic did outperform the Yukon Gold that was not. And I also saw that in the growth. Now, the red varieties were really hard to compare, partly because they were all different varieties, so I didn't have a true one-to-one test. Another thing about those is that they were growing in a more narrow raised bed. It was a 2.5 foot instead of a 4 foot, so they didn't have as much room to grow in general. But the one that was organic did outperform the other two. Now, that was the red Norland organic. On the opposite end, the red Cloud organic did not perform as well as the one from my feed store. All of those were very similar though. There really wasn't a huge difference between the red varieties. Now, the difference that I found was definitely in the Caribe, the purple potatoes that you saw. They outperformed everything by double, and in some cases more than double in yields. Now, part of that I think is just that the variety is a workhorse variety. It's supposed to be one that a lot of people enjoy growing, and I can definitely see why it grew well throughout the whole season. But it outperformed every single other potato that I grew this year, and it was the certified organic. When I compared the Caribe, that white potato, to the only other white potato that I could grow in my climate with an idea that I would have success with it, it definitely outperformed that, which was the Kennebec. Now, again, a lot of this does depend on my climate and your climate, because you may live in a climate where you could get much higher yields in potatoes than I can. But so far, I feel like this was a really good test for me to see not only the differences in the yields, but also just to see how the certified organic compared in general. Bottom line, where I'm located in Arkansas, I can get certified disease-free seed potatoes for 65 cents a pound. You really can't beat that. The drawback is that I only have a limited selection. I can only get the same 3 or 4 varieties year after year. And so what I love about the organic potatoes is that I have the ability to try different ones. If I had just stuck with my feed store potatoes, I never would have discovered Caribe, and it was one that definitely blew me away. So I would say for my own personal garden, I will probably in the future continue to buy from my local feed store the potatoes that I can get from them. The Yukon Gold, the red variety. Sometimes it's red Pontiac, sometimes it's Lesotho, sometimes it's red Norland. It just depends on what they have each year. And then I'm not sure that I'll buy Kennebec anymore because they haven't performed well for me in general. And now that I know that Caribe will do well, I think I will continue buying the certified organic Caribe. I also want to try some other varieties because if Caribe did so well, then some of the other ones might also. Again, it's always going to be a test because you are spending a little bit more for the certified organic, but in general, I think it was a good thing for me to do so that I could branch out and see if there are other varieties that would do any better. But overall, I think this was a great test, and I'm very happy that I'll be able to get the certified organic to be able to supplement what I buy from my feed store. And I hope you've enjoyed this comparison and it's been helpful for you as you decide what kind of potato that you want to buy to grow in your garden.